Chapter 872. This lasted about 3 hours, and Wilbur heaved a sigh of relief when all the believers were finally gone. It was tough work. Wilbur checked on Omar and the church militia's wounds then, upon confirming that they were minor injuries, he had them clean the wounds before gathering them in the church along with Carl and the rest. Wilbur's gaze fell on the Archbishop Carl, the patron Saint Catherine, the church executive Groot, and elders Cameron and Dawson. You five shall be the core force of the church. Work hard at spreading the word of your church. Meanwhile, I shall be heading back to Dasha. Are you going to leave now, Your Holiness? Carl seemed a little reluctant. Wilbur said, I have other things to attend to, and the church doesn't seem to be in any danger right now. I'm sure the Church of Holy Illuminati won't give us any trouble anytime soon. You just need to work on our growth slowly and steadily. I'll come back to see you when I have the time. Everyone had no other choice but to nod in agreement. After all, Wilbur was now the Pope, and his word was sacred. Following that, Wilbur transferred all $2 billion in his account to Carl to be used to help the poor believers. He was not short on money himself, and the money was better off being used for a good cause. After assigning a few more things and making sure everything was settled, Wilbur drove away from his assigned territory and headed to Goldsand City. The church was now on a steady path of growth. With its large amount of capital, as well as the natural charms of the patron Saint Catherine, Wilbur was certain that the church would be able to grow very quickly. On the way back to Goldsand City, Wilbur got a call from Eileen. She said that someone had brought him an antique in exchange for help. Wilbur smiled happily. It seemed like he had a pretty decent reputation now. How wonderful it would be if this antique turned out to be a top-grade contribution. Wilbur only reached Goldsand City the next morning, where he headed right over to Hannah's office. Hannah flushed at the sight of Wilbur at once. She hurried to stand, bowing her head like a guilty schoolgirl. I'm sorry, Mr. Penn. I've severely misunderstood you this whole time. Will you please forgive me? That's all right, Wilbur said calmly. I didn't tell you who I really was because I was concerned about involving Everest Foreign Trade in unwanted trouble, but it seems like my concerns aren't really warranted anymore. Hannah teared up, looking nothing but guilty. You saved my father's life, but I turned around and treated you like that. I really don't know what I can do to show you how sorry I am. Just do a good job at running Everest then. My little company invested $8 billion in that big project. I'd just appreciate it if you didn't make it suffer any losses. Wilbur smiled. Hannah was stunned for a moment. She did not know yet that Wilbur was the boss of Cape. Wilbur smiled at a shocked Hannah. All right then, I've booked a night flight and I'll be on my way. You can't just leave like that, Hannah blurted out at once. The words felt inappropriate as soon as they left her lips, and Hannah flushed even harder. Right on cue, there was a frantic knock at the door before her secretary came in anxiously. Miss Toya, Barry's here again. This time he says we're going to have to keep stopping production if we don't do what he wants. Hannah was currently shaking in annoyance but frowned at the words. What's going on? Wilbur asked. Just then, a young man in a suit swaggered in and sat down on his own. Have you thought it through, Miss Toya? I'm not asking for much, you know. $100 million isn't much. You're crossing a line here, Barry, Hannah fumed. Barry shrugged with a smile. It's not all going to me. I have a team to feed. In fact, I'm not really going to get much of that money. What's happening here? Wilbur asked Hannah with a frown. He's from the safety department and he's asking for a protection fee of $100 million, said Hannah.